This week's episode of the Run, Eat, Drink podcast is sponsored by Pure Creative Apparel. From logo design to specialty clothing to branded merchandise, the team at Pure Creative Apparel can take your ideas and bring them to life. You can find out more at purecreativeapparel.com, and we thank Pure Creative Apparel for sponsoring this week's show. Welcome to the Run, Eat, Drink podcast. We feature destination races from across the country, and after the race, we take you on a tour of the best local food and beverage to celebrate. So whether you are an elite runner or a back-of-the-packer like us, you'll know the best places to accomplish, explore, and indulge on your next runcation. Hey, welcome back to another episode. I'm Amy.
And I'm Dana.
We're so happy to have you along this week. And let me tell you, this week has not been the week for running for us.
Unless you're counting noses.
Yeah, I think we had runny noses, congestion. I mean, I had whatever funk is going around at work.
And then you decided to share.
And then I shared it with, yes, our cameraman, a la my co-host. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I'm so sorry.
20 years. I'm used to it by now.
Uh-huh.
But in all seriousness.
It's gone the other way sometimes too.
It does. And, but, we thought that it was just a little bit of the sniffles last week. I think we mentioned it. And it just went downhill from there. I mean, that was as good as it got.
We've been fighting this for a couple of weeks. So we decided to take it easy this week.
Yeah. So I think I may have gotten one training run in before finally succumbing to the feeling that I had been hit by a Mack truck.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I did some yoga and I think a training run as well.
Yeah, that was about it. It's all I can muster.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're going to recover and then push forward this week.
Well, we have to stay in tip-top shape. We are going to be traveling in about 10 days to Alabama.
Yes.
Still in search of a 5K run to do there.
I think we're going to end up doing our own.
And maybe doing some training runs with some neat backdrops. So we're doing some research on that, and we'll bring you more of that in a couple of weeks.
Sure.
But, we did at least get to partake in some excellent running.
We did because we did not run, but this time of year is just inspiring because this past Monday was Marathon Monday, like they like to call it in Boston. It was the 123rd running of the Boston Marathon. And I don't know what it is. And I know that it's not for everybody to watch running road race marathon type events on television. But this race, I love to watch it. I love the stories behind the runners, elite, and, anybody coming out to raise money for an organization or just honoring someone in their family, a friend, a loved one. Everything surrounding this race, it's very inspiring to me.
Yeah, and this was also the week that I decided we're going to cut the cord and we're going to get rid of cable and we're going to go with fiber optic connection and we're going to go with Hulu. And I did that on the day before, or the 2 days before the Boston Marathon, and I was given very strict instructions that I better find the Boston Marathon, and lo and behold, I did. And actually, this is, I think, my first time ever watching the Boston on television.
Yeah, we don't watch a lot of sports on television.
Not sports TV, but yeah, I do remember years ago watching sports as a kid with my dad. This running was not something that was covered unless it was the Olympics.
Yeah, I remember growing up watching the Olympics and watching track and field type races, but not really let's watch a marathon, that kind of thing, But this somehow, this is so, last year's race in 2018, the conditions were just awful.
Well, they didn't look great this year either.
And they were predicting this year was going to be very similar. They were posting all out on social media and about wanting to start corrals earlier or with less time in between corrals and just wanting to get everything, wanting to combat and avoid the worst of the weather.
Right.
So I think when it comes to the women's race, the woman that won clearly ran away with it.
Oh, yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
I think.
She had a minute lead at the very end. At one point, she was 3 minutes
3
ahead.
minutes? Yeah. Yeah. And we saw a couple of Americans early on in that lead pack. Sarah Hall and Des Linden and Jordan Hesse. They, and actually Des Linden and Jordan Hesse pulled it out there at the end to finish in the top 5.
Right. So,
but this was just a runaway for, De Geffa. If I'm not, I don't know if
I think you're saying it right.
Am I saying it right?
I think so.
I don't know. I tried to pay attention to our racing announcers.
And they did a great job on the coverage.
Yeah.
Also, we were watching it on, I think it was NBC Sports.
I think that's right.
That was carrying it. And they did a really nice job on the coverage.
Yeah. It was, and in those conditions, I'm sure that can be really tough.
Ugh.
So that I just was happy because Jordan Hesse spent a whole entire year out with a foot injury. And
wasn't it like a compression fracture in a bone in her foot?
Yeah. And
that's crazy.
It just, it warmed my heart to see her finish in the top 3, to see an American finish in the top 3. And just the way that she and Des Linden carried themselves when they came across the finish line and talking to the press. And, Jordan seemed so grateful. And Des was, hey, you got to respect the distance and respect the course. And it's, sometimes it's your year.
And I think that everybody is mindful that is not an easy course.
No.
Especially the back half.
Oh.
And they talked a lot about that during the coverage about, if you don't plan for and handle yourself accordingly, that back half punishes you.
Yes. We cannot all be Joan Benoit Samuelson, who came back to Boston this year, finishing within 30 minutes of her time when she ran it in 1979 for the first time and won it. And I watched, I think it was an HBO documentary, and she was being interviewed and she was talking about that race and how good she felt going in. And then I think she tells this story about turning to another runner and saying, hey, where are these so-called heartbreak hills? And she had already done them. She had already, hey, I've mastered that. I conquered that. And it was like nothing to her. Wow. I'm sure it was I'm sure it was tough, but it seemed like she was like, I don't know what they're talking about.
Oh, wow.
You know what I mean?
I wouldn't know what that's like.
I wouldn't either.
That's amazing.
I wouldn't either, but she talked about it like, hey, I don't know. There were heartbreak hills, but apparently I mastered them. And it's awesome to think she's in her 60s, and her goal was to come within 40 minutes because it was 40 years ago. Mm-hmm. And she came within 30 minutes, something like that.
Can't beat that.
Amazing. And
we've seen her in real life. I mean, she's stayed in such great shape. We've seen her at the Donna a couple of times.
Yes.
She's in tremendous shape even now. And then she gets out there and just eats that 5K up. I always laugh. We see her on the social shakeout 5K, and she just eats that up like it's nothing.
Yeah.
So funny.
I mean,
I want to be in that kind of shape when I'm getting into my 60s and above.
Let's hope.
I'd like to be in that kind of shape when I'm in my 40s.
Yeah. And I mean, the women's race was not really a close one, But the men's race
was a nail biter.
Was like right to the end, and first and second place were within 2 seconds of each other.
They were pouring it on at the very end. If you saw that finish, it was almost a photo finish. And
I mean,
they were just giving it all they could. That last probably 100 yards where they were just sprinting.
Like an all-out sprint, and it was just 2 seconds.
Yeah.
2 seconds separating first and second place. The runner who got second place, I mean, he was in the lead for most of that last, if not all of that last mile over there on when they make the turn and they're in Boylston, and oh my God, and he just got out kicked. He just said he got out kicked at the very end by Lawrence Chirono, I think is how you say it, and Lisa DeCisa, I believe they said, won it the year of the Boston Marathon bombing.
Okay.
And was trying to come back and win it this year. So, I mean, that was what a men's race.
It really was.
Wow.
And I caught that when they were talking about it in the announcers were talking and saying that all of the top 10 finishers are going to be
they make the Olympic standard.
Olympic standard.
Mm-hmm. Even though it's not, they make the Olympic standard even though they don't, because of the difficulty of the course. I think it is.
Okay.
That even though they might not make it in a certain number of minutes.
Okay.
Or hours, So
I think that's a fair trade-off.
Yeah. Yeah. And we had 3 women finish in the top 10, 3 U.S. women and 2 U.S. men. Scott Fauble and Jared Ward were in the top 10.
They'll be heading to the Olympics.
I think they were 7th and 8th with the Olympic trials. They'll go to they'll be able to run in the Olympic trials.
That's awesome.
So, yeah.
That is awesome.
So, and I think the wheelchair divisions, we had Daniel Romanchuk, and he's the youngest man ever to win, and the first American since 1993.
Wow.
Yeah.
And they were flying on some of that sections of that course. I mean, you were seeing, because there's so many hills on the second half.
But you could see how difficult some of the hills were when you saw the footage of them.
Well, that goes right back to us doing the Run the Bluegrass when we saw the wheelchair racer, and he was going uphill and just looking at his muscles just straining as he's pushing that chair uphill. So much respect for that.
That battle, that's tough to get up some of those hills.
And hey, I give them just as much credit on the downhill, because they had to be getting upwards well over 20 miles an hour, probably closer to 30 miles an hour, and keeping that thing under control. In some spots, I don't know how they didn't end up flying off the course.
And even though they didn't have active rain the whole entire race,
it was a wet course.
So I mean, you're trying to navigate puddles. You're trying to.
They said that a lot. They said that there's a lot of weaving happening. Yeah. Because the packs of runners were actually moving around the standing water.
But you still want to run the tangents so you don't add extra distance.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Weird. That had to be tough.
That's a highly technical thing when you're thinking about it.
Yeah, and I don't know. We never worry about, we just worry about finishing.
Yeah, that's my tangent.
Yeah. I'm like, can I make it to a mile marker? Can I make it to a water stop? Can I make it to the finish line and get the medal?
And will those people in that bus not pick me up?
Right? That is what we worry about. So there were some exciting moments for the U.S. During the Boston Marathon, and very inspirational.
Yeah, and a couple things that made some internet news too. Manuela Schär, Swiss runner. Yeah. She won Boston for the second time. Mm-hmm. With a time, what was she? 1:34.19. And in 2017, she set the best course time of 1:28:17.
Yeah. Yeah.
Come on.
I mean, like flying, just flying. But I think in terms of, I don't know, middle of the pack and back of the pack. I mean, I think we had a NASCAR racer finish in just a little bit over 3 hours, and he wanted to get 3 hours. And one of the most inspiring was from the realm of the military and the veterans that run the race.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a veteran, and his name was Micah Herndon. I believe he was a Marine, and he was running in honor of 3 of his comrades who lost their lives in Afghanistan in an IED explosion in 2010.
Yeah, and he's the gentleman that we saw on the internet video that
It's
went
all
viral,
over the place. Yeah.
That his legs gave out on him and towards the end of the race, and he ended up crawling across the finish line under his own power.
Yeah, crawling. I mean, I think there were pictures of a couple of runners helping him at some point before he was crawling, and there was a race official that was behind him the entire way that he crawled across the finish.
And that was really neat to see the race officials do that.
Like he's behind and then giving kind of signals to other runners to run around and avoid his path so he could actually get there.
Yeah.
Because he was just so spent. And he says in some of those interviews with the press that he just kept repeating the names of those soldiers until he got across the finish line.
Well, it's an awesome video, and if you haven't seen it, you can Google it. If you're in any of the running groups on Facebook that we're in, I shared it all over the place.
Yeah,
that video is just awesome, and I think that we shared it on the web on the page
on our Facebook page.
It's on our Facebook page.
Yes,
check that video out. It's had, I think, almost 4 million views, and it's worth your time.
Yeah. It's just, I mean, some of the stories of the runners in these big races like New York, like Boston, like Chicago, it's just, it makes you want to get out there.
Absolutely.
And I'm glad we're feeling better so we can get back out there and start to train.
I think I'm going to try it tomorrow.
Yeah.
So.
It's good.
But, even though we didn't get a lot of running in ourselves, we worked up an appetite watching some of this running.
Yeah,
and
wow, that made
planning.
me hungry.
And we did some, and in fairness, we did some race trip planning.
Yes.
As we announced last week. We're going to be going to Alaska. We got some stuff booked. So we worked up an appetite. It was fair.
Did. Yeah. All that internet research.
Hey, not all. Sometimes a marathon involves Netflix and the couch, not just shoes.
That's true. That's true. But I think the food truck scene has really exploded over the last few years.
Especially here in Southwest Florida.
Especially locally here. And I know that we're not on the road. So this one is a local one for those who are listening, who are local to us. You should check out on Monday nights at number 3 Craft Brews, the Schnitzel Express food truck.
And number 3 Craft Brews is on Cape Coral Parkway in Cape Coral.
Yes.
And if you're not local, but you're coming down to the area,
oh yeah,
this is a great place to check out.
Every Monday they're there.
They do this food truck every Monday. And number 3 is a tap room. So they have a rotating set of taps. They have a tremendous selection of bottles and cans that are on shelves. And
that you can take.
You can take with you, or you can grab one off the shelf and hand it to them. And they have an ultra rapid chiller.
And so it'll be cold by the time you drink it.
Yeah, so they'll pop it in there for a few minutes. You go grab a seat, and they'll bring it over to you nice and cold and ready to go. And they do this food truck every Monday, and then they have a rotating food truck on Fridays. Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's not always the same. Like, I think it was King's
Tacos.
King's Tacos last week.
Not to be confused with King's Kitchen.
Right. From our last episode,
right,
which was in Fort Myers. But this is Schnitzel.
Oh.
And that has a special place for you. You love it.
Well, here in Cape Coral, one of our largest demographics in Cape Coral is actually Germans. We have a huge German influence here in the city. This city was founded on selling real estate to people who lived in Germany during the height of the Cold War, who might be looking for a place to come in case things got really bad over there. And so we have all these families that immigrated over to Cape Coral. And they've brought their culture, they've brought their food, their music. We have one of the largest Oktoberfests in the country right here, with over 50,000 people a weekend going out to that Oktoberfest. But Schnitzel Express, this is a food truck owned and operated by a couple who also owned a restaurant. And I think that they've decided to go the food truck route instead.
Yeah.
And they keep it very simple and very traditional. And you had the
classic Wiener Schnitzel.
Wiener Schnitzel.
Oh, okay. I can't.
I have a horrible
Wiener Schnitzel.
But Wiener Schnitzel. Just say it.
Wiener Schnitzel.
We apologize in advance.
I'm sorry. I can't do it. I'm trying, but it was an amazing piece of pork which had been pounded flat and breaded, and it was so tender.
Fork tender.
Yeah, like they serve it with plasticware, with some pretty hefty, nice kind of plasticware to let you know. And I got the knife out, but I didn't even need it. Really. I didn't even need it. The pork was tender. It was served piping hot, but the breading was still crispy.
Yes.
And I think that you have to have a certain expertise to be able to do that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Without a doubt. Because you could so easily overcook that pork and it becomes shoe leather.
Like rubbery, or just the breading could fall off, which it did not.
No.
At all. It was
too big.
It was huge.
Pieces. I mean, you get the plate, and it's covering the entire plate, and it's piled high.
Yeah.
But it was piled high because it was on top of
potatoes, roasted potatoes. Yeah, roasted potatoes I got, and they had onions with them, and it was like just a buttery type of roasted potatoes that were sliced like if you think of an au gratin potato.
Yeah, you characterized it as an au gratin without the cheese.
No sauce. There's no sauce. There's some onion, but it has such a buttery flavor. Those potatoes, that side. Yeah. It was, and I mean, the pork took up 3/4 of this paper plate.
Easily.
Right? And they were served piping hot. And for the portion, I mean, it was like $12?
I think $12 for yours and $14 for mine.
And $14 for yours, because yours was with some sauce.
Oh, yeah. I got what's called the Hunter Schnitzel, which is the same thing. It's a pork schnitzel. So you have those pork cutlets that are pounded flat, breaded, fried. And then mine was served with those potatoes as well. And I had, instead of it being on top, they gave it to me on the side. It was this fantastic mushroom gravy, and it was fresh made. In fact, we went up to order it. They were very nice, and I think they were wanting to make sure that we understood that the Hunter Schnitzel comes with gravy, and they gave us a taster of the gravy. And the gravy was so fresh that the mushrooms still had a little bit of bite to them.
That's true.
So they weren't cooked to death.
That's true, because he let me try a little bit as well.
And it's just such a creamy, buttery, earthy mushroom gravy that it was perfect. So that's what I had with my schnitzel, and I also had those potatoes as well. And again, if you get that, you're not going to be hungry.
No, and I imagine that the chicken that they do in that same style would be just as huge.
Yeah, they offer a chicken schnitzel, and then they also have a couple sandwiches on their menu. They do have some vegan and vegetarian options on demand.
Yeah.
They just say, ask your chef.
Yeah.
And like I said, it's a chef-operated truck. These folks know what they're doing, and food's fantastic. So, we're going to link to them in the show notes.
Definitely, yes. Because it's not just number 3. They'll go to Scotty's Beer Works. They'll go to different places.
Well, they're all over Southwest Florida, and
Yeah.
I think that on their website they talk about being available for catering and events.
Yes. So it's delicious food.
Yeah, if you like traditional German or Austrian food, this would be an excellent option for you.
Yeah, way to satisfy that hankering or that craving.
Yes, and I get it at least once a year. Unfortunately, it's not always in October.
No, but you got some.
I did.
So
And I'm a happy man for that.
You are. You are.
Well, before we go on, I'm going to take a minute to tell you all about our friends at Pure Creative Apparel. Anybody can silkscreen a shirt. Look, we know it's true. I did it as a project in high school. But the team at Pure Creative Apparel is really much more than that. They will take you through the entire process to create your custom items, right from the very beginning with the design of your artwork or company logo, then create mock-ups to show you what the finished product will look like and help you select just the right high-quality name brand clothing or other merchandise on which you're going to place your artwork or your logo. And then they'll get you your items fast. Or if you're not looking to get into the whole online sales thing and you don't want to worry about inventory, packaging, shipping, and all of that, Pure Creative Apparel has a complete e-commerce package available. So whether you're a school, church, or club needing just a few shirts for a special event, or a company looking for a complete branding package, Pure Creative Apparel can help. Find out how by going to purecreativeapparel.com. And we really thank them for their support of the Run, Eat, Drink podcast.
And I was about to ask, who are you and what have you done with my wife?
And why would you ask me that?
Because of the beer you ordered.
Well, it's true. Number 3 also has some tasty beverages. They're not a brewery, so we didn't visit a brewery or a distillery this week. We went to number 3 because they have a variety on tap. They have like 12 or 13 taps.
Easily.
Don't they?
Easily.
Maybe 14, I don't know. And we've been going there for several years, and the people there that own it, they are fantastic.
Well, they've been through 2 sets of owners.
Yes.
And the first group
Both are
that
great.
owned it were phenomenal, and they're
Yeah.
friends.
Yeah.
And now it's a family that's bought it, and they're fantastic as well. And
Yeah.
we count them as friends too.
Yeah.
And
They know their stuff.
They know, they really do know their beers.
Yeah.
They have gotten in such a variety of different beers, and you went different and I went different, but
I went
you
different.
went really different tonight.
Yes. Normally, I'm not a fan of sours or IPAs or anything with Goza in the title. But on tap at number 3 was Red Cypress. And Red Cypress has some stuff that we've tried and we've liked, like their Death Roll is more like what we normally drink. But I had the I'm Fine Sour Goza, which is 4.6 ABV with key limes, oranges, and pink Himalayan salt. And
Never in a million years would I say, she'll have the salted Goza, please.
but it's not like a pucker kind of sour.
No,
It wasn't. You tried it.
I did. Actually, I tried it and I was shocked at how good it was.
Yeah, it's delightful. And I think it is that Himalayan salt that curbs the sour note.
Absolutely.
That's what I think. I got the citrus, and it's the salt that kind of stops that whole pucker type deal. And I wanted something that was lighter because there was plenty that was dark on the menu. But but with the pork, that was a lot of food.
It was a substantial meal that you were right to go with a lighter beer because I didn't. And
Well,
I'm still feeling it.
But you got a good beer.
I went completely out to a brewery that I never heard of.
I've never heard of them either.
And that's one thing I like about number 3. These guys are branching out to breweries that we've not seen down here in Southwest Florida.
Right.
And I got myself, it's not going to sound too crazy for people who know me, I got a milk stout.
Haha.
I do like milk stouts.
You do.
This was a 6% ABV, but it's made by Edmunds Oast Brewing Company out of South Carolina.
Yeah.
And it's called Dressed in Black.
Dressed in black.
Yeah. Kind of a light to medium body.
Yeah, it wasn't super thick.
Had a nice mouthfeel and a little bit of sweetness at the end, but it was very, very dark, very malty, chocolatey.
Yeah,
those roasted malt flavors that you get typically, and a fantastic pick. But I could have gone with a lighter beer in lieu of that, only because of the size of the meal and the heaviness of the meal.
Yeah, but
not complaining though. It was a very good beer.
But it gave us a chance to try two very different things, a different brewery and a different style of beer. Like I've never had something that was finished with that kind of Himalayan salt.
No.
And
I've, again, never known you to go for the salted goza.
Yeah, but it went with, because the pork was just so substantial.
It really was.
Yeah, and the potatoes, they were so filling that I don't think you could have had a heavier or thicker beer with that meal.
No. They had a couple of others that we tasted, just little sips.
Mm-hmm.
And there were a couple they had there that were much higher ABV, much heavier body. And I'm like, I just can't do a whole pint or a snifter of this.
I mean, we were even offered a suicide.
Yeah.
What's called a suicide.
One of the proprietors, he likes to experiment. He's like, I'll do a short pour from every tap and see how that tastes.
In a single glass.
And it's just like you remember when you were a kid mixing all of the sodas.
Oh, Lord.
It was not as bad as you would think it's going to be.
No, it really wasn't, but it depends on the mix you have on the board.
Yeah, he had a couple that were a cider, and he had something that was a
coconut.
Yeah, it was
something.
Coconut, chipotle, and chocolate.
Yeah,
so
different.
Mixing that with fruit beers was going to get very weird very quickly.
Yeah, it was okay. I wouldn't have repeated pints of that.
You wouldn't have a pint.
I mean, we had a little taste of what he mixed together.
he was just clowning around a little bit.
But that's what I like about going there, because we went there when the food truck first got there, and I like it. It was a little bit quieter to start out as people started to roll in, and I mean, they're just so friendly, and they're willing to let you try little samples of what's there, because they do have such an eclectic offering and some things that are so new to us.
And they're very passionate about beer.
Yeah.
And it's just a great space. They have the bar. You have a standing bar right behind there. And then they have some tables set up. They have a little stage where they do live music. I think tonight they were doing open mic night.
Open mic night,
our friend Kyle Ann Dugan was going to come run their open mic night.
Yeah.
They have bands come in, and some of their bands that they have are really good.
Oh, yeah.
They've done a great job at finding music talent for their nights.
Yeah, and also the decor that they'll have some Star Wars themed stuff up on the wall.
Some Star Trek themed
Star Trek themes. And they had a little baby, what is it, Galaga?
Yeah, there's a tiny video game cabinet,
small.
Probably powered off a USB cord.
It was.
That was a full-fledged Galaga game.
It's so cute.
She's playing Galaga, and it's no bigger than her pint glass. It was great.
It was so cute. What fun. And it harkens back to, the days of the Atari in the 80s of my childhood.
I wasn't allowed to have one.
Oh, it was great.
I made up for it in
I
the
sure
90s.
do miss it. Cubert, Frogger, Pac-Man. Love it.
Well, folks, when you listen to this episode on the Facebook page, leave us your comment of what your favorite 80s video game was, or 90s video game if you're a little bit younger.
Yeah.
I can vote in both of those polls.
You can?
I can.
I think maybe just the 80s for me. I don't know. But, yeah, it was definitely a good time, and that's what I like about that place.
So this week coming up, we'll be back on the road.
Now that we're feeling a little
not
better.
traveling, but back on the road,
training,
pounding the pavement. So,
yeah, we have to train for that Tampa beer run.
Yeah, that's coming up in May. And we'll also be on the road in about 10 days.
Oh, true.
To
before that.
doing some stuff for you in Alabama. So we'll have more for you when that gets closer.
Excellent. We must do our due diligence and research, or you could let us know also.
Yeah, if you're in what part of Alabama are we going to be
It's
in?
Huntsville.
It's
Huntsville, Alabama.
If you know of any races in the Huntsville area, the weekend of the 1st through the 4th
of May,
let us know.
Yeah.
We're looking to.
Yeah, we're looking, or places to eat and drink.
Yes.
That we can share with
I've
everyone.
I've already told her that we're going to maybe go to the Space Center and eat astronaut ice cream again.
Yes, I'm in.
So
I'm in. We'll do it. Love it.
But anything else we want to clue people in about for next week, or?
No, I think we've pretty well covered it. You know, stay tuned for anything that pops up that we discover.
All right. Well, we will be back here next week. That'll be Tuesday. We really appreciate you guys downloading the podcast and listening. Head on over to the website and check out the new site. We are updating it constantly. We will be updating the upcoming runs now that we have some things finalized. So I will get that done this week. That'll be done. But we also have the new store, which has all of our swag that the guys at Pure Creative Apparel have made for us.
I love that barkie.
She's been opening bottles just to see it work.
Yeah.
And we dropped off a couple to some friends of ours in the restaurant business. So if you're out dining, you might see a Run, Eat, Drink podcast barkie opening your next bottle of beer.
Oh, I love it.
But you could do that too right at home if you want to head over there and buy one. That helps keep the lights on for us, pays for the bandwidth and hosting and travel. But it's some good stuff. I mean, it's really high quality stuff.
Yeah, runeatdrink.net.
So we really appreciate it, you guys. And
hey, have a great week.
Yes, definitely. So for the Run Eat Drink podcast, I'm Dana.
And I'm Amy.
We will talk to you next week.
Bye. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Run, Eat, Drink podcast. We're having a great second year thanks to your support. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Run, Eat, Drink Podcast. And on Twitter, we're at Run, Eat, Drink Pod. Visit our website at runeatdrink.net so you can click on the iTunes link and subscribe so you won't miss a minute where we accomplish, explore, and indulge. Come along with us. See you next time.